Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lakbay. My name is 134, and I hope you have a good time today. We are once again here at our base, our lovely alpha base, and I am once again standing on some dirt because I wanted to look at our spider jockey platform that we built last time. To be honest, I've only seen one spider spawn in here. That's the only mob that spawned in here since the last time we spoke, but it's fine. At least I know that it works and it spawns spiders, so we're just gonna have to wait for that 1% chance. Meanwhile, I've spent like 4 or 5 stacks of torches lighting up more of our surrounding area here, some of the areas where we were fighting, some of the areas we were exploring, so that we could start reducing the possible places where mobs can spawn, so that we could perhaps increase the efficiency of this platform. So for today, we might work on this exterior, we might not, but I wanted to look at some of the other things we needed to do for this update, and one of those was to work on our food situation. And funnily enough, as I was playing the last couple of days, I'd actually been doing a lot for our food. So our cooked pork is now full, our uncooked pork is now full, we even have a surplus of uncooked pork there. We have lots of bread and we have some extra in our inventory, but we are still missing a chest of milk. Okay, I had to cut that off. I was saying a lot of stuff after that, but the main problem was that I could not drink this bucket of milk. As it turns out, when I was reading the history of the bucket of milk, at this point in the alpha, I could not drink it yet. It's just not possible, and I must have misinterpreted the changelog to think that it was drinkable, but apparently you cannot drink it, only empty it by clicking on a cow, as far as I can tell. So let's try and do that so that we can at least say that we have finished this quest of doing something with a bucket of milk. And then we can try to milk one again. Yeah. So we now have a chest of milk that is now functionally useless for the time being, since we can't really do much with that at the moment. Alright, so for this episode, I would now like to work on our treasure building once again. There's a couple of things I wanted to do for this episode. First one is just a cleanup of this schematic, this planet I wanted to do. I can't really do any of that right now since there's nothing to put in there at the moment. I should probably work on these parts once I have more treasures that I need to put into the building. The other major thing is, of course, our combination lock here at the front. It is based too much on timing, as I have mentioned before, but I want it to actually work with the combination. Like, I understand there's only 4 buttons and there's only like, what, 24 combinations or something like that, or some really small number after the number of possible combinations with just 4, but I would still like to have something where we are able to actually use the code as it is in order to open this lock. Now that we've cleaned up our cobblestone behind and over there, we have kept the doors on the side and back just in case. We will now look into our redstone over here. And as you can see, it is quite the mess. And let's see if I can even do something so that we can see what's going on over here. Yep. So in the middle here, we have our 4-way AND gate, where we have all of our inputs sneaking around, trying to get into these 4 blocks. All of the different delays. This one has no delay, this one has some delay, this one has no delay but it's inverted, this one has a longer delay on it. All trying to get into this AND gate, coming out onto this redstone line over here, which then has another really long delay on it, which then powers our door. So there's a lot to it, and because we only have white wool at the moment, we don't really have much in the way of color coding our stuff. I hope to change that as well as we work on this redstone. Now comes the part I really don't enjoy, which is starting to break down what we have built so far. Now, anything with these levers I cannot touch at the moment since these 4 are our inputs and this one is our output. so I definitely cannot touch those. However, everything else that is made out of wool and redstone should be removed for the moment. Now I have to be really careful, especially at this part of the build, since I would now be directly under the lava if I remember correctly, so I have to be quite careful. I'm quite proud of this repeater concept here. I know it's an existing redstone design, but I just built it out of from memory from what others used to do. But as of this moment, it's not useful anymore, at least the way it is. So I will clean this up and open up the area around here, since as far as I know, the design that I'll need to use for this new design would be much bigger. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, this looks weird to have it empty, but also surprisingly clean and comforting at the same time. But anyway, now we have to start working on what we are putting in instead. Now, as I've mentioned, we're now trying not to work with timing, but instead with with the order and correctness of the code instead. So the first thing that came to my mind is another one of those redstone concepts, which is the RS NOR latch. Let's start with an OR gate first. So OR meaning either one of these inputs will produce an output. Doesn't matter if it's this one or if it's that one, we'll still have an output there. Or we could even have both, and we would still have an output there. As an OR gate, which means either or of those two. And now to talk about the NOR gate. When we say NOR, it's just very similar to the OR, but there's an N in front, and that N could be a negated or inverted OR. So it really depends on what you want to use the word for, but it essentially means the same thing. On Minecraft, it just means there's a redstone torch here on the backside of the OR, which is our typical two connected lines. And this goes down to this output over here. So now instead of the torch being on by default, we now have it off by default, and now any of the two will now always turn the torch on. So any of the two will now always turn the torch on instead of off, which was the exact opposite of what we have over here. Okay, please follow up this thing. No. Oh, come on. Would have been one of my goals if there was a three high fall. And so finally, we get to talk about the RS NOR latch itself. I have here a couple of designs. These are the simplest ones I could think of. I'm pretty sure there's a vertical sort of design as well, but I couldn't figure out how to build that. This one is slightly smaller, but it has these two redstone dusts on top, so I might stick to this one instead. But anyway, here's how it works. For both designs, we basically have two NOR gates. So for this one, we have the lever and redstone line here. And for this one, we have lever and redstone line. So those are our two connected lines. And that's the same idea for these two as well. Lever and a line, lever and a line going up there as well. Now, what we have here is that we have two lines that are always in opposite states. One is always on, one is always off. Also the same with this one. And one of these inputs, these levers, will be their set input, and one of them with the reset input, hence the R and the S in the name of the latch. So if we have this as our set, we would now be able to turn on this line. And whatever we now do with this lever will not change the state of our set line, of our output line, unless we use this lever to reset. And now this would now not affect our system. It's like a two-way switch in a way, where one of them will always turn it on and do nothing else, while the other will always turn it off and do nothing else. Same idea with this one over here. So right now it's in its on state, and then we have to do this lever to turn it off again. So it's basically two NOR gates connected to each other to produce this sort of two half switches, one of them on, one of them off. But I think this is the core concept that will help us have our sequential combination lock. I really should have been doing the demonstrations in a creative world, but I'm not even sure if creative is here yet. But it should be, right? Because it's the mode that came first. Oh well, it's fine, really. And so we now have the basic concept of our new combination lock. I have here a couple of buttons that correspond to the correct button to press in each part of our combination lock. This is going to be the first one, this is going to be the second one, and if we press the second one too early, then nothing happens to our door over there. But if we pressed our first button first, then this sets this line, which now goes into this AND gate. Now, this part of our circuit, this first RS NOR latch, tells us that we have finished the first part of our code. And now when we enter our second button, it now opens our door. Now what's great about that is that we could even connect that to a second RS NOR latch so that we can add even more buttons to it, but in this case we have just opened our door. And since we have our set and reset part of our circuit, we can use the reset part, which is another button that closes all of our RS NOR latches, or that turns off our RS NOR latches and closes our door once again. I think this is solid enough for now in terms of how a combination lock could be done with our current technology. So I'll take most of this down and go back down to our cleaned out area over here, which now looks kind of terrible, to be honest. I'll try to clean this up as much as possible, maybe make all of this into cobblestone, or just start with a rectangle, I guess. So here we have our final mechanism. We still have our white wall for our input wires and in-between wires between the components, and our wood logs this time for our latches and our AND gates. Meanwhile, we have wooden planks for our reset line. And it looks much cleaner now since we used stone, but I might use other materials as well. And so that means we can now use our button combination, open the door without having to worry about the speed at which we open the door. It now remains open until we press our number 2 button over here. Now, it is still far from perfect. I'm still not quite satisfied. I still saw some flaws in how this thing works, but for now, I am quite satisfied with what we have done today. Well, with that done, I would say that I'm pretty much done with this episode as well. I am looking forward to finally going back to some of our other goals for this series. So, if you want to see more, please do feel free to subscribe. But for now, the grind continues. Goodbye, everyone.